How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today, attempt number 2, going to try and kind of just do a bit of gameplay, messing around mainly with this another new mod, the TC's 2020 Yeet mobile. Also, I mean, there's two versions. Once you download it, you get this version. It's basically a Corvette C8 on kind of like a monster truck chassis with yeah, some pretty decent tyres, pretty decent engine, all the rest of it. That's how well that one flies off White Valley. I was just testing now as well. It's got a pretty long winch on it. It couldn't quite reach that side of the water, but if you look now, when I go back to like the bank, it's probably just going to be a tree that pops out of the ground anyway, so I didn't really waste my time. Yeah, and the next version is this one, which is like a normal Corvette C8. Yeah, a couple of different engine options. One's around 500 horsepower, I think. The one I've got in at the minute, because I couldn't resist, was about 1700 horsepower. And it's one of them, really. The top engines make them a bit insane and erratic, but I don't know. It's kind of... That's why, in the end, I abandoned yesterday's video, because I've been messing around with these for like 2 days now, and in many ways, I like that they're in the game, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily particularly that useful. But it's just... Yeah, they've been funny messing around with, but as far as like editing and doing a video on them, it's hard to kind of like get some sort of fluent, meaningful footage, because what I tend to do is just keep messing around with them. You get like little blips where it's like, oh, that was a good thing, that was a good thing, and then it's kind of interspersed with a lot of like, you rolled it, you crashed it, etc, etc, and yeah, so it's just like very choppy with the footage. I'm still not particularly happy with this video, but it's one of them. I'm either going to make this video or just abandon mission again. Yeah, got myself some low suspension, just to make sure. I mean, he's a goddamn professional. Carries it around pretty well. So yeah, out of both of them, I would say that this off-wheeled, like the monster truck version, is kind of more usable, but then that said, it can't have any trailers or anything, so that kind of cuts out a lot of all that sort of stuff. The normal Yeet mobile, like the one that's, yeah, just sits on normal suspension, that can have trailers, but I mean, it sits very low, even if you got the raised suspension on it. And its front bumper kind of, not only is obviously very low, but it just made in a way that it digs in quite easily, so you end up like, yeah, just slamming your front sort of lower bumper into the floor and bouncing back off it a bit. So in the end, I'd say I've definitely messed around more with this one, like the off-road version. Treating it like a wheelbarrow with a loaf. Yeah, this, again, is like the normal Corvette. This is kind of what I've been doing quite a bit of. I mean, as far as off-roading goes, it can do it. Going down dirt roads and that, it actually isn't that bad. I put, like, yeah, the lifted suspension on it. I don't think the tyres really make much difference either way. You've only got 2 tyres, and I think they're both... They might even be 29-inch or something. Which, if that's the case, yeah, they are pretty small. I think even the loaf's got like 33-inch tyres. But yeah, for messing around in the yard here, I mean, again, this is the most powerful engine. Nice little drift there. See the front dig in though, I was going to go wide and go to the other lane, but it kind of worked out in the end. Yeah, it's just like a bit erratic and mental, but not necessarily a bad thing, as I said, and then Bruce tried to eat it. Yeah, it's, I wouldn't say that useful, but it's kind of, it's still funny that it's in the game. It's nice, it's answered a question that I've been curious about when I've been saying like, oh, it'd be cool if they added sort of rally cars, that kind of thing. And this kind of shows you now why there isn't really rally cars in the game. And I don't mean that in a harsh way, but it's just the way they've programmed this game so it behaves the way it does when you're off-roading and all the rest of it. It just doesn't sit well with this kind of thing that's, you know, got a ridiculous amount of power and it's essentially like a race car. I mean, yeah, messing around in the yard, it is funny just to go drifting around, taking a Tokyo loaf for a little drift. That splattered him into the wall. But yeah, I mean, overall, this version is more just for shits and giggles, having a laugh, messing around. I'm sure there is a few things you could do with it if you really put your mind to it. A nice little drift there, past the loaf. But yeah, the good thing is, like I said, at least you get 2 versions for 1 download, so this is more just for the sakes of having it in a way. Like, again, it's nice to now know what like just a full-on car with a lot of power behaves like in this game. But yeah, the off-road version is definitely if anything, like I said, I was going to say more usable, but the fact that it can't have trailers kind of puts it, yeah, more to the category. I mean, you think of things like the Cairn Marshall's probably not a ridiculously bad comparison, because that's kind of got a lot of power. It's almost got that monster truck look, big tyres. It can't have trailers. It's a bit mental and erratic, and it's one of them. It's like, yeah, I'm glad I've got it, but it's certainly not something I really use a hell of a lot. Hit the building and flipped around, but sent in the goddamn professional. And he saved the day. Yeah, there's a little blast on White Valley. I mean, it definitely goes pretty nice along this snow. As well, I've got the strongest engine in this one again. I mean, it's one of them things. It's like if you were being designed and someone said you want a 6-inch knob or a 12-inch knob, well, I'll take a 12, please. That's what she said. So, I mean, it just is what it is. I might want to floor it. I mean, they've got like a 1500 horsepower engine. I've got 500 horsepower if I just squeeze the trigger a third. But, yeah. I'm kind of my own worst enemy when it comes to this truck, or these mods, because I just can't help but putting the most powerful engine in and going flying around like a maniac. Once you do put the lower engine in, it definitely gets a bit more sensible and realistic. You can see now, I did a nice little, I was pretty happy with there though. Did some little pirouette in the air and we made it. Yeah, it kind of calms it down and it behaves a little bit more like a normal truck. And I mean, yeah, there'll be uses for it. You've got a winch, so you can always winch a trailer and tow that behind you, but I don't think it was ever trying to be like a serious mission vehicle or anything like that anyway. It is just, you know, it's been added for the sake of it, and yeah, why not? It's not something I'll be keeping around forever. It was growing on me about now, though. Yeah, that's what she said. But it was doing some pretty nice flips in the mountains, and it was pretty jammy with how often it was landing back on its wheels. It's obviously weighted very nice and low, so yeah, I think most of the weight is in all the chassis and everything, but a little bit later on when I go and ram some trees, I think like the front bumper contacts first, and the actual, say, the Corvette C8 part itself hasn't got a hell of a lot of weight in it, so you sort of hit trees, yeah, don't do a hell of a lot. You can hit one like that and just kind of smash into it and kill it, but if you're trying to nail them all in a row, it doesn't quite go as well. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I've spent a few days doing. I was looking around at some missions, but as I said, there was not a whole lot to choose from. Even as far as like sort of time trial missions that I could do, I honestly don't think I'd be able to drive it in a straight line for long enough to, yeah, to make it to the end of the mission. So there's a little blast on Black River. And again, I think I've got, yeah, raised suspension, all that stuff. The suspension, it's got a crazy amount of health. I think it's like 20,000 or something on the suspension, so you're going to see you'll take plenty of damage as you're driving along, but yeah, it'll take you a bloody good while before you actually make a pretty meaningful difference. But you can see now it's basically very difficult to drive. It's kind of, when you floor it, it could jump to the left, it could jump to the right, it could just go straight. Even though the steering's pretty responsive with it, it's not going to respond as quick as this thing's just going to go mental. So, yeah, again, I mean, it's just sort of messing around, having fun with it, but you can see there again, the front bumper, like, I'm in no position to talk because I don't have a clue what I'm doing when it comes to coding, but hypothetically, if I did, I suppose the only change I would make to it is kind of, even if it was invisible, imagine like an angled front a little bit like the Tatran, not like, it doesn't have to be as bigger of an angled front as the Tatran, but just to actually kind of give it, yeah, sort of angled like a skid plate, so it'll actually bounce over things rather than having like a very pointed nose that once you catch anything. Driving along, found a loaf on Mole Patrol. It's all good. Yeah, you can see they're going down dirt roads. I mean, it can. But then you get situations like, yeah, bit of an odd bounce. Luckily, I landed back on the wheels for that one. And it made it this far, but yeah, you get to here where it does actually start to become pretty soggy, boggy, deep mud, and that's it. Game over. You'll see now when I'm winching myself forward. It's pretty much sanking into about like the windows. Very nice sounding engine. I'll say that much. yeah, carving a pretty fat line through the terrain, but not really going anywhere very fast. Keep flooring it, hope it gets better, but it didn't. So yeah, jump back in this thing, and again, I mean, you can see it's a little bit mental, but that is the top engine. And that was like one tiny little blip of the throttle, like a half-second blip. And yeah, we did a 180 and just went skidding along the yard. Problem is, I just had a difficult time trying to put the normal engine in it. It's like going to McDonald's and choosing a salad. I just couldn't do it. And when you go there and they say, do you want a salad? It's like, no. I think I drove to McDonald's for a piece of fucking lettuce. I'm going to come in there and punch Ronald McDonald in the face. But now we're both out of stupid questions. Get me something doubly McMeaty, please. That's what she said. Little McDonald's tip as well. Most of you probably know this, but if you want a fresh burger, just ask one with no bloody gherkins. Why do they put them gherkins in McDonald's burgers? My brother's dog, Hugo, it was the coolest dog ever. He's not around anymore, bless him, but yeah. He was like a barometer for food that you can trust. And he used to come everywhere with us, so when we got a McDonald's, he'd get a McDonald's, and probably get like a double cheeseburger or something. And yeah, when you give him the burger, he'd peel the top of the burger off, pick the gherkins out of it, and then absolutely demolish the burger. But he wouldn't nail it until he got them pickles out, so if he knows something's wrong with them, I trust him, because he was a greedy bastard. He'd eat most things, but he didn't like them gherkins. Yeah, anyway, back to this thing. You can see it's clearly like a much more fluent off-roader and everything though. But when you do kind of calm down on the throttle a little bit, one thing I do like about the more powerful engine though, it does give you a chance to flip the throttle. The odd thing that kind of happens in this game, and it's not strictly like to do with this mod in particular or anything, it's just kind of the mechanics of the game, is as there is enough power here, the high range is weird. Like if you go in at about the speed that high range goes and you floor it in high range, it just kind of gets to its speed and it ticks along. But as if you've seen some previous videos doing like the Jeff Special where you can sort of make it go mental in high gear, this has got enough power to it where it's sometimes it's trying to auto Jeff Special. I mean, that's what it basically did in that yard when I blipped the throttle. So if you're going pretty slow and you floor it, it kind of goes beyond high gear and then you start drifting. And again, once you start drifting in this game, the high gear kind of kicks in even more and makes you go even faster. I'm not sure on this and I have no clue, but I've mentioned it before and I kind of feel like it might play a part, but yeah, for those of you that have been playing this game, you probably notice when you're driving around in pretty much anything, once you're going pretty fast, you just start to skid around, particularly on the roads. You know, it's like you're driving on black ice pretty much, a bit like driving in Lake Covd on the frozen river. And yeah, I'm not sure if a way they achieve like letting you go faster in this game is almost reducing the friction the faster you go. So yeah, there's nothing holding you back. Like on the other end of the spectrum, if you go to maps like Lake Covd and Imandra and stuff, you got the super snow, or those new maps, Flooded Foothills and Big Salmon Peak have got like the super mud. It's yeah, sort of the opposite end where there's like a lot of stuff in the way that's gripping you and stopping you from driving fast. But I believe possibly like the opposite end, yeah, on roads, to allow you to go fast, it kind of just reduces the friction to almost nothing, hence why once you're going fast, you're skidding around like a maniac. And of all the mods that have been released so far, they still kind of follow the rules of that element in the game, really. There's nothing that... Really, it doesn't really seem to matter which tyre you have, which mod or whatever. If you go fast enough, you're just going to skid around like a maniac. So, yeah, it kind of suffers from that a bit, but as I said, I don't think it's like this mod specific. I think it's game specific, unless they actually change the way it all handles, which basically they're not going to do, not now on this one anyway. So, and I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. I appreciate they've coded it all, whatever, done it the way they've done to achieve the desired results for off-roading and stuff. Like I said, this is kind of not really in the realm of things that they were, you know, making the game for. But again, I still like that the option's there, because yeah, there is plenty of slow trucks and all the rest of it, and these aren't that usable, but for messing around, they're yeah, they're fun. And again, it's nice that the option's there. It's a bit like, I don't know, a tractor in Grand Theft Auto 5. It's like, I don't need it a lot. and it'll never really come in handy, but still appreciate that I can drive a tractor if I want. Oh yeah, long story short, I tried to ram through the trees. I could only knock one tree at a time because it kept doing a wheelie. So tried to use a weight distribution loaf, but as you can see, things went a bit mental. I kind of flicked through the trees. Loaf's goddamn professional, so he landed on his wheels, of course. But yeah, this thing, as I said, I think a lot of the weight's in the chassis, or like say the axles and all the rest of it, the tyres, rather than the actual car body itself. But when I was hitting the trees, I think you hit like the nose of the vehicle first, so because that itself hasn't got a lot of weight in it, that kind of levers you back until you sort of smash into the tree with, say, like your front axle, and by then it's already kind of encouraging you to do a big wheelie. Yeah, drove on that trailer, which is pretty nice that it could just claw up, got up there, absolutely no issues. For some reason though, I noticed this trailer, even though I've clearly got it disconnected, the legs have not sort of extended, so it's standing there. So yeah, I went and had a little go with the loaf, because I mean, I zip trailers around, I wouldn't go as far to say all the time anymore, but I've certainly done quite a lot of semi-trailer hauling around with the loafs. And yeah, the biggest problem is normally when you drive the loaf underneath, the legs are all the way down, so they drag quite a lot. That's one reason why it'd be nice, as and when we get a loaf mod, if it's got a saddle high or a saddle low on the roof. Just so, I mean, it saves me having to attach the winch to it and all the rest of it, but yeah, it'll just be quite handy, because then it'll be like this, the legs will actually be retracted. But again though, that truck thing, whatever, the Yeet mobile, it got up onto the back of that trailer, absolutely no problem. I couldn't resist. Had to go for a little cruise. Not much though. I edited a good chunk of it out because I know I have got a slight addiction to the loaf. You see, it's just such a goddamn horsepower vehicle that everything you want to do with a loaf is doable for whatever reason. The loaf just gets it done, which is nice, because then, yeah, instead of like not being able to do what you want to do, I spend more time doing what I want to do. This might actually now be with the normal engine. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might be. You can see again on roads are just iffy in this game though. And that's another thing I will say with this thing is, yeah, on roads, in the yard, etc., it does look pretty erratic and sort of, yeah, not that usable. When you're actually driving on off-roading and stuff like this, it settles down more, and it, yeah, kind of, yeah, like I said, just kind of gives you a lot more friction and grip, but because of that, you kind of stay a lot more planted and, yeah, go in the way you're actually planning on. And overall, it's a pretty competent off-roader. I'd certainly say out of all the mods, I prefer the Titanium Maximus. That feels a lot more, not just in terms of realistic, but it suits like the gameplay better. Yeah, this thing is a bit insane. Although I did see on the mods, I've not had a chance to test it tonight, I might well do that tomorrow. Is there like a super stadium mod or something that I believe they've added? I'm guessing it's a map and it's got like a little racetrack and all the rest of it. I'm sure it said some of them at least were like asphalt racetracks, so yeah, maybe this mod, or more the lowered one, like the normal Corvette C8 version, I'll actually go pretty well like with that mod. There is a couple of more mods as well that I'll be testing out. As I said, I was messing around with this yesterday. There's a few reasons I've been a bit like erratic with the videos recently. Is that I'm struggling with a bit of sleep. I'm in like just a bad pattern at the minute for about the last month or so. Part of it is because those sleeping tablets I've been taking that was giving me quite a nice smooth sleeping pattern for the last X amount of months. They're just getting to the point where they're not really touching me anymore. That's what she said. But yeah, they're just not knocking me out, not making me go to sleep. So I keep not getting sleep for ages, waking up late, falling asleep, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, like I'm certainly not getting bored of the game or anything, especially not since I've added mods. So keep me pretty busy. And yeah, they keep adding more as well. As I said, there's is it Helion something, some kind of off-roader added. There's like a military version of Fleet Star, I think it was, and I think it might be a different version of the Royal. Just, yeah, a few of the bits and bobs that I'll be testing out very shortly. But I just wanted to kind of get a video about this made. It was close to hitting the loaf. But I just couldn't really... I don't know. Like I said, even now I still feel like the footage is just kind of a bit erratic and choppy. There's not really anything particularly going on, just kind of me messing around with them. And then, yeah, once I found this trailer as well with its legs up, that kind of it distracted me a bit, but can you blame me? Find something with its legs up, it's bound to be distracting. Yeah, I got it caught, I think, on the curb. It was absolutely not got a chance of towing it out of there. It reminds me quite a lot, the look of this, more from the front than the back, of like an old, well, I would say old, not really that old, Ferrari 360. Anyway, yeah, did a lap again. You can see, I mean, it's sort of, when it wants to off-road, it's good. It's just, you don't really have a whole lot of choice of when that front bumper's going to dig in, and that kind of, yeah, limits things quite a lot. But delivered the trailer back, did a nice little 360 on the way. And yeah, that's about it. Like I said, they're good for a laugh. I'm probably not going to keep them that long term, but it's nice that they're there. That's about it for today, though. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Get yourself a loaf, of course, and I'll be back soon.